Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We're here to support House Bill 3660, an act relative to MCAS reform and bringing our students up to the 21st century skills that they need to succeed in their life. And up until now, I think the debate's been stuck on whether you're for MCAS or you're against it. And if you were somehow for MCAS, that means you were good on accountability and good on standards. If you were against MCAS, you were anti-accountability and anti-standards. And I think that dichotomy needs to be broken up. We need to be looking at our testing and our assessment system and saying, is it delivering on the promise of education for all students? Is it delivering on the promise of education reform from 1993? And I think what we've seen is an amazing transformation of our schools since 1993, where we've seen some great improvements in our schools. We've seen the investments actually paying off and some of the issues of the national test scores raising and some other improvements in our communities. But I think it's fair to say, after this many years of education reform, can we be doing better? I think the current theory is that if we test it, the kids will learn it. If we test it, the teachers will teach it. And I think that mantra needs to be broken up to say, what do we actually want our students to be learning? And how do we measure that learning in a real, authentic way? And I think we can be doing better. I just want to reference a report from the Boston City Council Special Committee on Youth Violent Crime Prevention from 2006. And they, I think, encapsulated some of the challenges with our current system very well. They said youth that participated in the forums and other discussions expressed massive frustration and boredom with the endless drilling and practice of MCAS test and test preparation. Electives have been replaced by test preparation. After-school programs teach MCAS preparation. Far too many students describe their school experience as an MCAS-centric environment. And given the large number of annual dropouts, nearly half the number of students that graduate, as well as the pressure on teachers to improve scores, the incentive for students to remain in school is tenuous. And there's been a lot of back and forth and debate about the connection between high-stakes testing at 10th grade level and the dropout rates increasing dramatically since that graduation requirement went into effect. But even if you don't believe that connection, because we saw over a 30% increase in the dropout rate in the first 4 years of the high-stakes tests being in place, we can ask some basic questions of what was MCAS and what was ed reform supposed to do? It was supposed to prepare students for the workforce, it was supposed to prepare them for higher education, and it was supposed to close the achievement gap. And we can look at those three factors and quantify that those results, those goals have not been fully met yet. Mass Inc. just did a report this past year titled Incomplete Grade at Massachusetts Education Reform at 15, which I encourage you to take a look at. And one of the things this report emphasizes is that while we have made progress in certain areas, we can and must do better. In particular, our current assessment system is going to keep us exactly where we are. I'm going to quote very briefly, while education reform in Massachusetts has raised the level of achievement across the board, our findings provide strong evidence that doing more of the same will not close the achievement gap. And I think what we're asking you to do when you look at this bill and look at these issues surrounding MCAS reform is to actually ask the question, can we be doing better? Can we create a system of assessments that actually tests what we want the students to be learning and doesn't have the negative unintended consequences that we're seeing right now? And I think the answer is yes. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and members of the committee. I just wanted to be here to reaffirm Representative Sciortino's comments. I'm a strong supporter of this bill, and just from talking to parents and children and teachers in the district, real recognition that the current system of a focus on high-stakes standardized testing is not working, and we need to work towards a more broader approach to how do we evaluate children and how do we help them better learn, and just ask for your support. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairwoman, thank you very much for having us here today. I would just reaffirm what my colleagues had said. I usually bring up the point of levity as a point of levity that I am the only state rep who would actually had to take the MCAS test in order to graduate from high school. But today I'll use it as a point of, but
I think it was
as we all release that laughter, but I'll share with you that I believe it's a point of experience. Because I believe one of our roles as state legislators is to increase quality of opportunity for all of our young people. And as someone who has sat next to a young person taking the MCAS and see that young person fail and fail again, and work as hard as they did in the low-income area of my neighborhood throughout their educational career and not be able to get that degree at the end of the day, we stifle that young person's opportunity. And we continue to do that throughout the Commonwealth. And I'm not saying the MCAS is all bad, but what I'm saying is that multiple assessments, I believe, is the way to go. And it's the way to further opportunity for all of our students in urban areas and suburban areas students who are on IEPs and those students who are in a high curriculum or high achievement settings. But I would hope that you will look at this piece of legislation and use me as a point of experience and someone who has personally taken this exam and knows what it does to students teaching and learning in the classroom. And I hope you will look at multiple assessments. So thank you.
What we've crafted is what I believe is a balanced approach that actually balances standardized testing across the state with local assessments as well. And for example, at the 10th grade level, incorporating end of course exams in math, science, history, and English that actually makes the coursework more relevant to the exams and vice versa, and actually make sure that you're not just going through the standard curriculum and a bubble test. It actually incorporates both teacher evaluation, in-classroom assessment, multiple assessments in that function, but also the state standardized tests as well. So it doesn't eliminate them. You actually still use those state standardized tests for some evaluations. One of the things I'd ask you to think about is that there's a difference in purpose when you look at different kinds of assessments. Are you trying to measure the progress of the individual student from year to year? That class is a block from year to year, assuming the students are the same students from 9th to 10th grade, which is often not the case. Or are you trying to measure the school's performance? And what we've tried to do so far is create one standardized test that does all of those functions. And I think it's safe to say that we need to be looking at what the function of the test is and can we come up with an assessment system that uses the professional judgment of teachers, which I don't think should be discounted, frankly. And I think our current mantra just assumes that teachers are robotic instructors as opposed to actually professionals with training and development, curriculum expertise in and of their own right. I think we can't discount their professional judgment, but also make sure that we have a balance with standardized assessments as well. It allows for local assessments in terms of portfolios or other local measures that are scored by teachers, but you can also incorporate quality control in that process. Right now, if you have a portfolio system for the alternative MCAS, you actually have a state standard for how that portfolio is tracked, implemented, and scored. So you can actually have a state, if you will, quality control on the quality of the assessment at the local level, even for the local assessments. But that's only one piece of the overall assessment, which does also include standardized testing.